نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن هدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. As we continue in our lesson in Usul Thalatha or Thalathatul Usul, by the great Imam al-Mujaddid rahimahullah wa jazahullahu anna wa anna muslimin khayrul jaza. As the great Imam, he mentioned his tremendous book of this treatise preparing all of us for the inevitable reality that we will embark upon as individuals and human beings, which is death, which is maut. And there's other names, of course, in the Arabic language for death. A lot of people think it's just maut. There's hataf, there's maniyah. All those things mean death. They're just synonyms. But as far as death is a reality that's inevitable for all of us, Musliman wa kafiran, whether they be a Muslim or unbeliever, as that is the reality and the ultimate abode and destination for every human being without any exception. And as we continue in this day of Sunday, September the 23rd, 2018, according to the Gregorian calendar, which agrees and coincides with the 11th, I think it's the 11th now, Muharram, 12th of Muharram. The 12th of Muharram, the year of 1440, 1440, after the migration of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. We returned to what we were discussing, or rather in actuality we concluded and finalized what we started as we finished the principle about, or the principle in which the great Imam had put in this treatise, that by these treaties societies were brought out of darkness into the light of Iman, and social ills were eradicated and disseminated, and decimated, excuse me. They were all destroyed and decimated in every aspect you can think of, due to the likes of these treaties in which the great Imam had authored. And I'm sure that everyone who's listening online, and everyone in this room, sees the turmoils of society of today all around them. The chaos, not only is affecting the surrounding communities, but affects us as individuals in our lives. Because I'm sure that a lot of us have grown up in homes and come from backgrounds that I'm sure we say that we would have loved to have been in a better situation. But however, that's due to the turmoil and the realities, due to the human beings disobeying what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. And what comes as a result of it is corruption and chaos and mass hysteria, or if you want to say helter-skelter. It will penetrate every home as a result of the plot of shaitan for the human being and the human being obeying him. For verily that reality of death is a reality in which we're preparing for. which can happen at any given time and any given second. As none of us are promised the next minute or the next hour or the next day or the next month. So one wants to be in full preparation for that reality once it hits. And this type of book prepares you for that because, like we said, he authored this treatise in preparation for death because he was preparing one for answering the questions of the grave, which is Man Rabbuk, wa man Nabiyuk, wa ma Dinuk. Who's your Lord, who's your prophet, and what is your religion? We finished the qa'idah, the principle, what he put in the book, that he said, "I'lam arshadaka Allahu li ta'atah an al-hanifiyyata millatu Ibrahim." That have knowledge, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you rushd, as we concluded that principle. We finish. May Allah give you rushd. And like we said, the meaning of rushd, as we mentioned last class, meaning that Allah wa ta'ala give you guidance by aiding you and giving you success to attain knowledge so you won't be misguided in your belief system. Meaning giving you proper knowledge. So when he said, Arshadaka, may Allah give you rushd, meaning may Allah give you ma'rifah of Him. May Allah give you knowledge of Him, and may Allah give you knowledge of all what rectifies your belief system, and what rectifies your worldly affairs, and also likewise when he said, may Allah give you rushd, meaning that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also give you success to bear the fruits of that knowledge, which is application or implementation or the actions. So that is gathered in that one supplication when he said Arshadaka. And this is exactly what is in conformity with or direct correlation with what is mentioned in the book of Allah subhanahu jalla fil ula. So we said that the Hanifiyya is the way of Ibrahim. And we said that that is exactly what the Prophet ﷺ had came with revitalizing and bringing the same millah, the way of what Ibrahim was upon, alayhi wa ala nabiyina afdal as-salati wa tammu taslim. That is what our Prophet was upon, or that was what our father, Abu al-Anbiya, Ibrahim, what he was upon, and likewise in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded his final noble prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, to follow that same way, in which he had inspired and we revealed to follow the way of Ibrahim, as we concluded and we explained in the last class. So now let's move on to the next principle. If you open your books, that is out. You didn't get the book yet? You need a book. You got to have your book with you. Inshallah, next class. Well, it says that the next principle that we will cover is an ta'budullah wahdahu mukhlisan lahu ad-din. So the next principle after he said anna al-hanifiyyata millatu Ibrahim, he said that the way or the Hanifi of Ibrahim, listen to what he says in the principle. He said that you worship Allah alone, purifying it and making it genuine and sincere for him, the religion. Meaning purifying it of polytheism and idolatry. So when he said, rahimahullah, that you worship Allah alone, having ikhlas, purifying it, making it genuine and sincerely for him alone. And he said, بِصِيغَةِ الْفِعْلِ الْمُضَارِعِ. And you will find that he used that you worship Allah. And he used the verb, or the verbal tense, or what was used here, is the present verb. Clarifying that one stay steadfast and continue to worship Allah and what he's in the time that he's in now, currently, and likewise what is to come in the future. Meaning stay steadfast upon worshiping Allah alone until the reality comes to you, which is death. As we know, the ayah where Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hijr, ayat number 99, where he said, Subhanahu Jalla fil Ula, وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. Worship your Lord until surety comes to you. Meaning, stay steadfast upon worship. Because you've noticed in your book, he said the Hanifiyya, the way of Ibrahim, is to worship Allah. So he used the word ta'bud. He used the present verb that you worship Allah, which necessitates what, everyone? To continue to worship Allah right now, currently, in these days, or in this time, or in this current time, or this present time that we're in now, and in the future. All the way up to when death comes. Stay steadfast upon that. As we know, you'll find that there's a narration in the Prophet ﷺ, that's something that aids this particular matter which we're discussing, which is mentioned in Surah Al-Hijr, ayat number 99. Worship your Lord until surety comes to you. He says, وَالْيَقِينُ هُنَا هُوَ الْمَوْتِ. Of course, we know surety here means death. And we know there's a hadith upon Ala. She said, قالت سكن عندنا عثمان بن مضعون فاشتكى فمرضناه حتى إذا توفي وجعلناه في ثيابه دخل علينا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقلت رحمة الله عليك يا أبا السائب فشهادتي عليك لقد أكرمك الله فقال لي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وما يدريك أن الله أكرمه فقلت لا أدري بأبي أنت وأمي يا رسول الله فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أما عثمان فقد جاءه والله اليقين وإني لأرجو له الخير. This type of narration is to show that yaqeen in Surah Al-Hijr, that surety in this ayat means death. And that surety comes in the Arabic language, and especially in the Kitab and Sunnah, depending on the context, of course, of how it's used, one will recognize that the meaning of it is death. As we know, the initial meaning, or the original meaning of yaqeen is surety. That's what yaqeen means, surety. But depending on the context, it can mean also likewise death. And here in this context, in Surah Al-Hijr, ayat number 99, then it means death. So there's a hadith that's authenticated, which comes in Al-Bukhari, in which the Prophet ﷺ had talked about when the great Sahabi, his name was Uthman ibn Mad'un. Al-Ala, that Uthman ibn Mad'un, Uthman ibn Affan, Uthman ibn Mad'un, one of the Sahaba, he says that he was in a time of sickness, fashtaka. He was in a time of sickness and we nursed him. فَمَرَّضْنَاهُ, we nursed him until death came to him. And we made him in his thobe, or meaning in his clothes or his garments. I mean, we used it as a shroud, and we wrapped him in those garments. He says, دَخَلَ عَلَيْنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. That the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, and he came upon us or entered upon us, and he said, may the mercy of Allah be upon you, Aba Sa'ib. He said, may the mercy of Allah be upon you, Aba Sa'ib. And he was talking about the Uthman ibn Mad'un, the one that just passed. He said, فَشَهَادَتِي عَلَيْكَ لَقَدْ أَكْرَمَكَ اللَّهُ. He said, then you'll find that Al-Ala, who was present, I think it was his wife, Al-Ala, has said, likewise, Rahmatullah alayka Aba Sa'ib. Listen to what she said. I testify, my fashahadati alayk. I testify and I bear witness upon you, and I testify. Indeed, Allah has honored you. It's as if she's saying that in the hereafter you're going to be promised paradise, that it's coming, that your reward will be coming, definitely. So listen what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ mentioned and said. What will make you know that Allah indeed has what? Honored him. وَمَا يُدْرِيكِ أَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَكْرَمَهُ. What make you think that indeed Allah has honored him? فَقُلْتُ لَا أَدْرِي. I do not know. May my mother and my father be sacrificed for you, O Messenger of Allah. بِأَبِي أَنْتَ وَأُمِّي. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ has said, as for Uthman, for verily, wallahi, I swear by Allah, yaqeen has come to him. Yaqeen has come to him. So what is he talking about here? This explanation clearly shows what? That yaqeen can mean what? Death. But listen to what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said. However, indeed, I definitely hope for him good. Indeed, I hope for him good. And we know, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, that this narration is a methodology in which the great Imam, Sahib al-Sunnah, Sahib al-Sunnah, and we can say Sahib al-Sunnah also, the great Imam al-Barbahari, rahimahullah. This is from the principles that he extracted in which the people of the truth believe, which is we do not testify anyone specifically that they are indeed and definitely in paradise, except who Allah and His Messenger have what? Clearly said that they will be in paradise. That there is no one that will come after that. That we testify and say indeed, definitely, they are in paradise. But those who die in a state of good, then we say we hope for them good. Based upon this narration. Narju lahum al-khair. That we hope for them good. And you'll find that this was from the great companions of the Messenger of Allah. And we know that the companions have a high status in our religion, in which we know definitely that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is pleased with all the companions of the Messenger of Allah, ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een. Without any shadow of a doubt that Allah is pleased with all the companions. However, the Messenger of Allah here is teaching us that we do not testify for any human being except who Allah and His Messenger have clearly stated and specified who will be in paradise. That we do not say that they are definitely in Jannah by name specifying them. That so-and-so is in paradise, definitely. However, we hope for them good. And if they die in that state, then definitely we say, Narju lahum al-khair. And this is from the distinguishing factors and the criteria of Ahlul Sunnah, what distinguishes us from the other milal, the other ways and practices of the religion. As you see, the justice and fairness of, even though a person died in the state of Islam, one cannot say we're like the Christians where you say God, you definitely will be in paradise. The Messenger of Allah taught us, even though a person might die from us, still, we do not say definitely for sure he's in paradise. However, we say we hope for him good. Because we know that specifying and testifying, saying definitely without a doubt, so-and-so is in paradise, is from the affairs of the unseen. No one knows that except Allah. That's from the ilm al-ghayb. That's from the knowledge of the unseen. No one knows that except Allah. However, a person that dies in a state of evil from Ahlul Sunnah, from Ahlul Qibla, from the people of the Qibla, meaning from Ahlul Islam or Ahlul Millah, from the way of Al-Islam, we say, Nakhafu alayhi, we fear for him his evil actions. So notice the statement that we made that has a precautionary measure in it. We fear for him his evil actions, meaning we might find someone who died in a state of evil, where one committed suicide. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from that. Nasallahu yu'idana wa iyaakum min al-intihar. May Allah Ta'ala preserve us and you from dying in that state or in any evil state. But a person that dies in a state where he had a su'ul khatima, where he died in the evil state, from the people of Ahlul Qibla, from the people who are from Ahlul Islam, or the people of Islam, or the people from Ahlul Millah, we say we fear for him his evil actions. So notice we still did not say what? He's definitely in hell either. However, we fear for him his evil. And Ahlul Sunnah, as far as a person that dies in a state of uprightness, who's known for uprightness and righteousness and purity and being upon what is correct, then notice still we do not say definitely for sure, without a doubt, he is in paradise. We say what, everyone? Narju lahul khair. We hope for him good. But however, the point of why we're mentioning this is what, everyone? is to show that yaqeen, that surety can mean what? Death. That surety can mean death. And this, what we just mentioned, is a rebuttal and a refutation against those you'll find from the Muslims, and you'll be surprised of different Muslim countries that say so-and-so died as shaheed, or so-and-so died and he will be in paradise. And he's in paradise now. So-and-so died in a state in which he is from the martyrs. He will be in paradise. I will meet him and we will see you there. And all these other different statements that contradict our belief system. What is the fundamental, pure belief system of Ahlul Sunnah, in which the Prophet ﷺ taught his ummah. That no one, do we say, from Ahlul Qibla that dies, except we say the type of statements that we just mentioned. We either hope for him good if he died in a state of righteousness and purity and uprightness, or we say for the person who died in an evil state that we fear for him his evil, or we fear for him his sins. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us and you a husn al-khatima, a good ending. طيب. So now if you notice in the statement that we said, he said that you worship Allah Ta'ala, and if you look in the qa'idah, the principle in everyone's book, it says, أن تعبد الله وحده لا شريك له عفوا مخلصا له الدين ومخلصا له الدين, that you worship Allah, making it sincerely for Him alone, and genuine and pure, ridding yourself of all types of impurities of shirk, of polytheism and idolatry, which is the worst types of impurities and the worst type of pollutants. For now you see that it says in this particular principle that you worship Allah. What is the meaning of ibadah? The origin or the meaning of ibadah, as we know, is a dhul. Dhul. What is dhul? What is it? Meaning lowering yourself, servitude, subservience. Dhul. However, linguistically in the Arabic language, brothers and sisters, if you listen, linguistically, ibadah comes from the word also mu'abbad or mudhallal. Mu'abbad means something to be paved out and smoothed out. That's linguistically speaking. The first meaning I gave was that's from Kitab and Sunnah. But the linguistic meaning of the word ibadah or mu'abbad means mudhallal. Listen to what it says, and this is to give a little bit more or shed some more light, so we can elucidate to what we just mentioned, to shed a little bit more light on this matter. So listen, it says, طريق معبد أي مذلل للسالكين قد وطئته الأقدام. And this is to shed a little bit more light to let one know how ibadah, why it's called ibadah. For you'll find in the Arabic language of tariqun mu'abbad, a pathway that's mu'abbad, that it's been lowered, it's been smoothed out, it's been paved out. Why? Because people walked on top of it. Or feet had treaded upon it. And we know that when the feet treads upon something, it usually makes it what? Makes it lowered. It makes it lowered. So notice tariqun mu'abbad or mudhallal, which has been smoothed out, paved out, or paved away, or smoothed out, lowered. So what is the connection of ibadah to this type of matter what we're discussing? What's the connection? Because ibadah is also likewise what? Lowering yourself, putting yourself down, humbling yourself, being subservient, actualizing that servitude, humbling yourself, lowering yourself for Allah. So that's why it's called ibadah. Because we said it comes from the word dhul. And they also say that linguistically in the Arabic language. They say tariqun mudallal, from the word dhul. Tariqun mudallal. Mudallalun lissalikin. Mudallalun lissalikin. Lowered, smoothed out for those who traverse upon the path or a specific path. So what is the connection? Inshallah, I'm sure that everyone can make the connection. The connection is, as we know, that ibadah is what, everyone? When the servant lowers himself and serves his Lord Ta'ala, it's as if he's what? Putting himself down. Lowering himself. However, that is the foundation of ibadah. Is what, everyone? Ghayatul dhul. The most utmost of what? Servitude. Of lowering yourself. The most utmost. That is what every affair of worship is based upon. The most utmost of servitude with another condition, which is the most utmost of love. So those are the two foundations of ibadah. Actualizing and carrying out servitude of lowering yourself for your Lord Ta'ala, when in the midst of doing that, also having the most utmost of love. The utmost of love. As we know, the poetry, as Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in it, in his tremendous poetry, Nuniyah, that he said, وَعِبَادَةُ الرَّحْمَنِ غَايَةَ حُبِّهِ مَعَ ذُلِّ عَابِدِهِ هُمَا قُطُبَانِ وعليهما فلك العبادة دائر ما دار حتى قامت القطبان ومدار الأمر أمر رسوله لا بالهوى والنفس والشيطان. What he said in his poetry, rahimahullah. He said that the ibadatul Rahman, that the worshippers of Rahman is the utmost of love with the most utmost of dhul, of servitude. That they are the two qutubani. They are the two pillars or the two poles that stand up. He says, and upon them revolves all the aspect of worship, going around in a circle, around those two pillars. And they cannot go around until those two pillars have been established. Or those two poles or those two pillars have been firmly established. So the ibadah of Allah is what, everyone? Ghayatul hub ma'a ghayatul dhul. Or you can say ghayatul dhul ma'a ghayatul hub. The most utmost of love, the most utmost of what? Servitude. Of servitude. As we know, this is the foundation of what? Of ibadah. These two pillars. And all the other affairs of worship, they revolve around these two what? These two pillars. As we talked about before, a person can be or have servitude for someone, like a slave, for example. A slave or a servant can have servitude. But at the same time, he can hate someone. For example, how many times we know a person can be a slave and he's been submissive to one and serving one. However, at the same time, he hates that individual. There's people out there, and women do it, a lot of, it's sad to say, there are women out there that do that in relationships. They're nice to a person, they're kind to a person, and they can be married to a man, but still hate his guts and do not like him like that. But still be with him. And the same thing for vice versa with men too. But women do it usually because they only have one choice, to be with one man. While men have 4 options. Women have what? 1. So their instinct of survival now kicks in. I'll be with this man because he what? He has stability. Even though in the back of my mind, I might love someone else. Or I might have feelings for someone else. Women do it all day. But at the same time, not specifically talking at you. But at the same time, notice that they can hate his guts and not like him. Also, likewise, at people at jobs. How many people have service for someone, but I can't stand his guts? How many people do we serve? And even during the times of slavery, having servitude and service in one, and at the same time what? Hating his guts. For the ibadah of Ar-Rahman is not like that. One has to serve Allah Ta'ala, and at the same time what? Loving him. So that's the reason why all the affairs of worship all dwells around those 2 affairs. And let's switch it up now. Let's switch it up. Then you have likewise. The opposite. A person can love someone or claim or have love, but it does not manifest in their actions. Or it does not manifest it correctly in a manner of how that person wants to be loved. And that even it's testified in relationships amongst the khalq, amongst the creation. How many people say, I love you, but they don't love you in a manner of what? A manner that's acceptable to make you feel what? Satisfied. I'm showing you love. Shut up. Sit down somewhere. But you're not being loved in a manner of how you want to be loved. So it's still not what? Unacceptable. A person would say they love, but they manifest in their actions something else. That's not at the same time what? The affair is not true until you see it, you hear it, of course, verbally, but it manifests in the actions. As the actions confirm what, everyone? Confirms whether or not what you said or you testify with your tongue of loving someone, that is true or not. So that's the reason why we say that love has to couple along with what, everyone? It also couple along with servitude. It's serving yourself from Allah. Meaning, as far as in the aspect of ibadah and of worship and in your belief system and in your actions. So it's not just enough to say, I love Allah. And you are committing acts that totally what? Contradict that statement. Because we know when we said that the actions are the confirmation of what? You testify verbally. The actions is the confirmation. And that's why it says in another poetry, تعبد إله تعصي الإله وتظهر حبه هذا محال في القياس بديع لو كان حبك صادقا لأطعته إن المحب لمن يحب مطيع. Where it says in the poetry, he says you disobey Allah. He says even though you what? You disobey Allah even though you claim you love him. That is impossible even in an affair that's considered an analogy. If your love was true, you will obey him. Verily, the person who has a claim for love, for the one he loves, obey them. So that shows that love of ibadah is not just one without the other. It has to be the utmost of what, everyone? The utmost of what? Of dhul, of humbleness and servitude, with the most utmost of what? Love. Both together. One cannot exist without the other if he truly actualizes the ibadah of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? The reason why I have to go this slow in this pace, because there's some people out there, no matter how slow I go, they'll still say repeat it again. So I have to take in consideration all of the levels of everyone and education of everyone. And also likewise, depending on the circumstance, some people they come in and their mind is not with me. Their mind is on something outside. So in regards to what we just mentioned and said, this ibadah is the reason why the human beings were created. This is their purpose. This is their purpose. As far as in the aspect of the ibadah or worship, if we want to call it, another derivative of the word ibadah. Everyone, as we know, well, first we could talk about what the ta'rif of the ibadah. Also, the ta'rif or the definition of the ibadah of worship is what, everyone? And I'm sure, alhamdulillah, the sisters answered this before in the test that we gave them. He says, the meaning of ibadah, as we know, is that it's a comprehensive word for everything that Allah loves and He's pleased with, of statements and actions, openly and inwardly, or external or internal. It is a comprehensive word for everything that Allah loves and is pleased with, of actions and statements that are open and that are open, or you can say openly or inwardly. The ibadah of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, ya ma'ashal ikhwa wal akhawat, is the greatest honor for the human being. That is honor for mankind. Rather, it is the greatest and most magnificent of how Allah honored the children of Adam. How is that, ya ma'ashal ikhwa? Due to the fact you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam of him being a abd, him being a servant or slave of His subhanahu jalla fil ula. The ubudiyah of Allah. What is ubudiyah? Ubudiyah, notice that it comes from the word ibadah. It's just another derivative. Ubudiyah is another word for ibadah. As we said, ibadah means worship. The ubudiyah means servitude. The ubudiyah is servitude. And it also can mean worship. It means servitude. But it also can mean worship. The message of Allah ﷺ was described as abd, meaning he was described with the ubudiyah and the most greatest levels of how Allah Ta'ala described the creation. And at the same time, Allah Ta'ala still affirmed for His noble prophet ubudiyah, ibadah, despite of him having high levels and seeing what no human being seen, such as, for example, in Surah Al-Isra, ayat number one in Surah Al-Isra, Allah Ta'ala says, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa liyuriyahu min ayatina. As Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Isra, in the first ayah, glory be to the one who raised his abd. He raised his servant, the message of Allah sallallahu during the night. Min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa. From the haram, that's in haram in Mecca, all the way up to the other masjid, which is in Palestine, in Quds. It's a masjid al-aqsa. And the message of Allah seen when no human being seen on that particular night. As the message of Allah was raised to the seventh heaven. And He was raised above it. In which no human being has what? Has been. No human being. Not even Musa. The Prophet Musa, as the message of Allah, as we know, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, was giving all the miracles of the prophets, either something similar to it or better. To let you know that the final prophet and messenger to humanity was the greatest of all of them. The message is Prophet Musa spoke to Allah. So the Prophet Musa spoke to Allah. And he spoke to Allah Ta'ala, and he heard the voice of Allah, which is something tremendous. He heard the voice of Allah, but however, the message of Allah ﷺ has something that was more deep and more in depth and greater than Musa. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ was taken and was wrote that he raised his abd, or that he was lifted up to the seventh heaven. Because we know one distance from one heaven to another heaven is the distance of 500 years between each heaven. And we know that Allah Ta'ala has said there are 7 heavens in His book. That He has mentioned in Surah Al-Talaq, Allahu alladhi khalaqa sab'a samawati wa min al-ardi mithlahun yatanazzalu al-amru baynahun lita'lamu anna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir wa anna Allah qad ahata bi kulli shay'in ilma. Allah Ta'ala says in the last ayat that He created 7 heavens. And He also created 7 earths. Allah Ta'ala has mentioned in His book the 7 heavens. And we know that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said that from the distance from each one is the distance of 500 years. From one heaven to the second, 500 years. Second to the third, 500 years. Third to the fourth, 500 years. Fourth to the fifth, 500 years. Fifth to the sixth, 500 years. Sixth to the seventh, 500 years. And then Allah Ta'ala's footstool. Then you have the throne of Allah. Then you know, as we know, the great distance and the great magnificence and the distance of all those heavens in comparison just to the footstool of Allah is like the ring thrown in the middle of a desolate desert. In comparison, just the footstool of all these heavens in the great distance. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ rose above all of that. Jibreel took him above all those heavens in a great distance. In one night, as he was rose above that heaven, and not only that, this was greater than what Musa was given. Because he rose above all that, and he spoke directly to Allah. And Allah, the Prophet ﷺ spoke to Allah directly behind the hijab, behind the veil. Because no one can see Allah in this world. The human being and the weakness of the human being is too great. As Allah had said that to Musa when He manifested, what we will understand is just a fingertip. Not saying that is like Allah, because nothing is like Him, Jalla fil Ula. But how the human being will understand only what was revealed to Musa, what we will understand as human beings is as a fingertip. And despite of that, it disintegrated the mountain and Musa passed out. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a veil. The Prophet ﷺ talked to Allah behind the veil and heard His voice. So the message of Allah was given something greater than Musa. Not only did he speak directly to Allah, but he went up above the heavens that no human being has been. And see the greatness of creation in one night, that great distance of all those years. And the message of Allah, even despite he was given this type of honor and this type of nobility, and that he's seen what no human being seen, Allah still described him in the eye as just being a servant and a slave. That's it. So that's the point why we're mentioning this. Because a person now, you'll find that from the greatest wisdom of why Allah mentioned this in the eye as him being a servant. In order for people to think, or for one people to not to get the false impression, that just because he was raised this high level and he's seen what no human being seen, don't take him out of the level of what Allah has given him. Don't say now he's a mystical type of human being, or he's something mystical, or he's something that deserves to be worshipped because he had this type of level with Allah, or this type of magnificence. So that means that he's either a part of God, or that he's a third of God, or that he's some type of spiritual manifested type of individual that nothing has been, of what we cannot describe or comprehend, and all this other nonsense. Allah refuted that and rebutted this in the same ayah where He said, despite of this being his level, alayhi salatu wassalam, and he was given this privilege and this honor and this high status, he's only still just a what? Abd, servant, human being. He's still only abd, and he himself, alayhi salatu wassalam, has been what? Commanded with the duties of carrying out worship. Which lets you know that what? He was still a human being, and he was likewise just and the aspects of the rest of the human beings where he was supposed to actualize what? Mere worship, just like all the other prophets. However, what happened with Jesus, the son of Mary, is that they now made him mystical, made him like this, a part of three, the son of God to the end of it, until what? They took him out of the what? The status that Allah gave him, which was just being a servant. That's it. And calling to the worship of Allah. And for Allah to protected this ummah from escalating out of this what? This type of had, or this level, by saying he's still only just an abd, despite of this high level that he has. So it's to keep everyone, to let them know, do not let shaitan venerate the messenger of Allah above his level. He's not a deity. Do not worship him like what the Christians did with Isa. Keep him in his place. Allah commanded him with the ubudiyah, just like the rest of the human beings have been commanded with the ubudiyah of Allah, which is the servitude and the worship and the slavery, if you want to say, of Allah ta'ala. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? As we know, the Prophet ﷺ was giving all the miracles of the prophets, every single last one of them, something similar to it or greater. And I'll have time to speak about, because if you break down all the miracles of the prophets and then compare it to the Prophet ﷺ, he was given something similar to it or greater. Now getting back to what we talked about of the ubudiyah. The ubudiyah or servitude breaks down to different types. For you have the ubudiyah, al-ubudiyah naw'an. You have the ubudiyah or the servitude that is of two types. What is the first ubudiyah? You have the ubudiyah amma. You have the general type of ubudiyah who's described as servants, generally, in which all of the creation share in this particular type of ubudiyah, the general type of ubudiyah. Meaning in which the command of Allah, of this existence, of everything created, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, that he mentioned this in his book called Al-Ubudiyah. He has a book, it's tremendous. He has a book called Al-Ubudiyah. The book is called Ubudiyah, servitude or subservience or worship of Allah. And he was breaking down the different types of ubudiyah. And he said that you have the first type of ubudiyah, which is called ubudiyah amma, the general ubudiyah. He says where all of the creation is subjected to, of this existence, in which all of them participate, or all of them share in, and all of them what they share in. Which comes in the ayah, which is in Surah Maryam, ayah 93. It says, إِن كُلُّ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ إِن كُلُّ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِلَّا آتِ الرَّحْمَنِ عَبْدًا. It says, verily everything that is in the heavens and the earth will come to Ar-Rahman as abd. Everything in the heavens and the earth will come to Ar-Rahman as abd. So Allah Ta'ala did not give an exception. Meaning on the day of resurrection, from the prophets, the messengers, the human beings, those who believe and those who disbelieve, all of them will come on the day of resurrection as a servant, as an abd, as a slave to Allah. All of them. Even the angels. The angels are ibad, they're servants, they're slaves of Allah. And from the jinn likewise. The jinn are ibad. They're servants of Allah. And there's nothing special about them in which they will come as a partner with Allah, or part of Allah, or son of Allah, or children of Allah. All of them are going to come on the day of resurrection as abd. And Allah Ta'ala mentioned this in the context of Surah Maryam, ayah number 93. Read the context. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rebuttals the Christians in that 4 verses. He says, وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ الرَّحْمَنُ عَبْدًا لَقَدْ جِئْتُمْ شَيْئًا إِدًّا تَكَادُ السَّمَاوَاتُ يَتَفَطَّرْنَ مِنْهُ وَتَنْشَقُّ الْأَرْضُ وَتَخِرُّ الْجِبَالُ هَدًّا أَنْ دَعَوْا لِلرَّحْمَنِ عَبْدًا وَمَا يَنْبَغِي لِلرَّحْمَنِ أَنْ يَتَّخِذَ وَلَدًا إِنْ كُلُّ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِلَّا آتِ الرَّحْمَنِ عَبْدًا لَقَدْ أَحْصَاهُمْ وَعَدَّهُمْ عَدًّا وَكُلُّهُمْ آتِيهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَرْدًا. Allah Ta'ala mentioned this ayah 94 in the context when he was rebuttaling the Christians and laying down the truth to them. In his last final revelation, addressing them and saying the reality of Jesus, the son of Mary. So none of them can come to you and say, well, your God and my God is different. No. You find in the Quran, Allah is talking about who? Abraham. He's talking about who? Moses. He's talking about who? Dawood. He's talking about David. He's talking about Jesus. So the one who's revealed the Quran is the same one who revealed what? The Bible. Or what they know as the Torah and the Injil, or what they understand as the Bible, the New Testament, the Old Testament, they say. And the final revelation that cannot be tampered with, Allah is laying down the reality of Jesus, the son of Mary, where he says in his book, they say that Allah has taken on a child. Verily you have what? لَقَدْ جِئْتُمْ شَيْئًا إِدًّا. You have done something and said something very horrific. تَكَادُ السَّمَاوَاتُ يَتَفَطَّرْنَ مِنْهُ وَتَنْشَقُّ الْأَرْضُ وَتَخِرُّ الْجِبَالُ هَدًّا. So you claim that he has a child or children. Listen to what Allah is saying about himself, about what you are saying when you say that. You have said something horrific. You have said something disgusting. That the heavens and the earth, that they will split apart. يَتَفَطَّرْنَ مِنْ وَتَنْشَقُّ الْأَرْضُ. That the earth was split apart. And that the heavens will come tumbling down in destruction. That Allah Ta'ala, that you would claim is better for you, that you would claim that he had taken on a child. Or taken on a what? Children. Now listen what it goes. It is not befitting that the most merciful take on children. وَلَا يَنْبَغِي لِلرَّحْمَنِ أَنْ يَتَّخِذَ وَلَدًا. It is not befitting for the one who is a deity, the one who's the all-dominant and powerful, to take on a what? A child. Because a child necessitates a need. Human beings only need children and a wife and a woman to continue his family or to continue his progeny or continue his lineage. That's only befitting for human beings, not the one who's the true dominant and the all-powerful, and the one who's the all what? Sublime and the majestic and the mighty, tabaraka wa ta'ala. It's not befitting as a deity worthy of worship. Because these affairs renders him to be what? Incomplete. Because it brings another type of characteristic, which is need, haja. And we know that Allah has the characteristic of ghina, all absolute self-sufficiency. That has no characteristic of need. So Allah Ta'ala says in this book, it is not befitting that you take Ar-Rahman, that Ar-Rahman takes as a child or children. Now this is what he says in the ayah which we're talking about here. وَمَا يَنْبَغِي لِلرَّحْمَنِ أَن يَتَّخِذَ وَلَدًا. Here now he says, everything in the heavens and the earth will come to Ar-Rahman on the day of resurrection as an abd. Everyone. Prophets, the messengers, the malaika, the jinn, even shaitan himself, all of them have the general ubudiyya of Allah. All of them. The general ubudiyya. Then you have the second category of ubudiyya. You have the second category which is called ubudiyya khassa. Specific, exclusive ubudiyya. The ubudiyya which is specific, which is special. And that is the ubudiyya or the servitude or the worship of the messengers. I have to stop. Of the messengers and their followers, meaning from who? The mu'mineen, from those who believed in them. Those who love Allah and obey Him and obey His commands and abstain from His prohibitions. You'll find that some of them say it's called al-ubudiyya al-shar'iyyah. Al-ubudiyya al-shar'iyyah. Al-ubudiyya al-shar'iyyah. They call it the legislative ubudiyya. Some of them call it that same category. The legislative ubudiyya. So they are the messengers and the prophets and those who follow them. Only specific for them. That type of ubudiyya, brothers and sisters, also breaks down into three categories. That type of ubudiyya breaks down into three categories. Shaykh al-Islam mentioned in his book of al-ubudiyya, as far as the first category of what is pertaining to ubudiyya that's specific or exclusive. You'll find him saying that those who did not worship Allah, such as a kafir that was what? Arrogant and haughty and belligerent. He said that that's going to throw me off, especially if it has a scent to it. The first category of the ubudiyya khassa, meaning the one who disbelieved or the one who's belligerent and arrogant, such as what happened with Iblis, with the shaitan himself. As Iblis, as we know, was from the ibad of Allah, right everyone? And despite of that, he what everyone? He disbelieved. Why? Because he was arrogant and haughty. So the one who did not worship Allah, the unbeliever, or the arrogant unbeliever, we want to say, I'm sorry. The arrogant unbeliever, or arrogant disbeliever. The second category, as far as the ubudiyya khassa, the second category of the specific type of ubudiyya is the one who worships Allah, but however he worships along with him another deity. That person is an unbeliever and he's a mushrik, he's a polytheist. He's an unbeliever and he's a what? He's a polytheist. Then you have the third category, which is what everyone? The one who worships Allah alone, who is the sincere Muslim, the mukhlis, meaning the one who purified his ubudiyya. He purified it. We actualize that monotheism, or Allah being singled out in worship. And that is the true ubudiyya of Allah. That is the true ubudiyya of Allah, subhanahu jalla fil ula. The first category, if you want to, for lack of better words, the first one, if you go back to the first one, everyone, notice that person just said that they were the one that does not worship Allah at all. Doesn't have any type of worship. But he might believe in Allah, might believe in his existence, that there's a God. As we know, that's with Iblis. Shaitan does not disbelieve in the existence of Allah. He believes in the existence of Allah. However, he refused his worship. That is also a refutation against those who are agnostics, as they call them. I believe there's a God, but I don't have no religion. I don't worship Allah in any type of way or worship God in any type of way. But I do believe it. I do believe he exists or whatever, but I don't believe that I have to do it in a certain manner or fashion, that there has to be a prescribed method of so-called way of trying to draw close to God. That's called an agnostic. That he believes in the existence of God, but he doesn't believe in any type of so-called method of how to worship God, as they believe. Iblis rejected the worship of Allah, and he became from those who still considered a what? Unbeliever. He's still a kafir. And this was the affair of Iblis. So Shaitan believed in Allah. He believed that Allah exists, but he rejected whatever he wanted, his ibadah. The last category, and we'll stop because we have to stop. I didn't want to make it too long because I had this too. I had a prayer. The last one, and we'll stop here, inshallah. The last category, as we said, the third one. The third one, which is, we're still speaking about the ubudiyyah khasa, the specific or special type of ubudiyyah, right, everyone? We're still discussing that. We're still on that, right, everyone? Right, the third one, going back now, skip down to the third. The third, as we said, is the true. Is the truth, and now. Is the sincere religion, and is the true reality of Islam. It's the true reality of Islam. Well, we know Islam is what, everyone? The meaning of it is what? The definition of Islam is what, everyone? Ahsant. Absolute submission to Allah. Or if you want to say, surrendering yourself to Allah. Istislam. Istislamu lillahi bit tawheed. Submitting yourself to Allah by singling Him out in worship. The word istislam, everyone, just to give everyone a little bit more, or shed some light a little bit more. When you say in the Arabic language, ana istaslamtu lishurta, they use that word to say he surrendered to the cops. He handed himself in. You understand, everyone? But in the Arabic language, they say this, istaslamtu li ashurta. So just to get more reality of what istislam is, you're doing that except for who? You're doing that for Allah. You surrendered yourself to Allah. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So that's to give some more light of what ubudiyyah is. This is what it's as if you're doing with Allah. I'm surrendering myself to you. By what? Firstly, singling you out in worship. Then, on top of that, the second one is what? Also, the second definition of the true Islam is surrendering yourself to Allah. Surrendering yourself to Him by obeying Him. That's the meaning of being Muslim. And this is what you would say if a person was to ask you, what is Islam? What is the meaning of being Muslim? This is what you would say. Surrendering myself to Allah, meaning the only true one, God or deity worthy of worship, by worshiping Him alone. And surrendering myself to Him, of course, also likewise, surrendering myself to Him by obeying Him, and freeing myself from polytheism and its people. Al-bara'a min ash-shirki wa ahlihi. Freeing myself from polytheism and its people. That's the meaning of being Muslim. So do not let one of you come, someone's to ask you, what is the meaning of Islam? What is it? They say, oh, it means peace. No. That's from the ultimate goal of Islam, is to attain security and peace. That's from its goals, but that's not the meaning ultimately, or primarily that's not the meaning of it. Because peace and security will never be actualized except by what we just mentioned here. And those three things. Is that one surrender himself to Allah. By what? Singling Him out in worship. One will never attain security and peace by shirk. And the second definition of Islam is what? Surrendering yourself by obeying Him. That's the second one. And freeing yourself from polytheism and its people. And its people. Freeing yourself from polytheism and its people. So in Islam itself is wala wal bara, is one showing his allegiance for people and disallegiance for someone else. And there's no way you can say you love Allah until you hate His enemies. You have to hate his enemies in order to truly love Allah. No one from a person that truly loves an individual say, I love you to your face, and they still have love for those who hate you. You will find that extremely strange. Right, everyone? If that's the case with the creation, it's unacceptable with Allah. Lillahi al-mathalul a'la. Of course, with Allah is the highest of example, and there's nothing similar to him. Is exactly with Allah also has mentioned this in his book. Likewise, this is unacceptable. You cannot claim that you love him and at the same time loving his enemies. We'll stop here, inshallah, and we'll continue for next week. We'll stop here at this qa'id. So the principle we stopped at was what, everyone? That you worship Allah alone, making the religion sincere, only for him. And we'll stop here and we'll continue next week in this particular matter. We'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.